Okay, that was a nice one video break. Let's go back to yelling about Sega games. My taste in games took a big pivot last year when, on a complete whim, I decided to start playing Final Fantasy XIV. After not being able to get into MMOs during my teenage years, I figured it was just a genre that just wasn't for me, but leave it to Square Enix to show me what for. Since then, I've had my eyes on other MMOs that I'd like to try. I have Elder Scrolls Online, but I haven't played it yet, and I was interested in World of Warcraft Classic until Blizzard went and did all that. And then at E3 2019, a big surprise came. Phantasy Star Online 2, the big MMO that never left Japan, would finally get an English release, 8 years after its initial launch. And on the Xbox, no less. Odd choice, but hey, official Phantasy Star, baby! And now, here we are. Phantasy Star Online 2 has been out for a month on Xbox One, and just got its release on PC. So let's talk about it for a bit. I'm not gonna get too into the story, but to set the scene, you play as a member of ARCS, a task force upon the fleet of Oracle, who are tasked with monitoring inhospitable planets and fighting off against Fallspawn, a force that corrupts and seeks to shroud the universe in darkness. Again, I'm not going to get too into it, partially because there's a whole lot of story and lore going around, and secondly because in my current playtime, I actually haven't engaged much with it. Not that I need to do that to have a good time, because whew! The basic gameplay loop goes a little something like this. You choose your quest from the quest counter, and then you head to the ship to depart. Once there, you run through the areas, fight enemies along the way, loot whatever is dropped from both defeat of foes and crates, and maybe beat a boss. The big stars are the expeditions, which drop you in a few decently sized areas, and task you with beating the boss at the end, leaving you to your own devices until then. If you think that makes these empty, that's far from the truth, because certain events can occur called codes, which give you a limited time to perform certain tasks within a time limit to get more items and experience. These can range from beating a certain number or type of enemy, beating a randomly spawned boss, capturing a strong foe, dodging attacks for a certain amount of time, collecting objects, bomb defusal, or helping a spawned ARCS operative. Certain areas will only spawn certain codes, but these are always a blast to engage with, and it helps make sure that no two expeditions will ever be exactly the same. The game in general has a very snappy pace to it, and that's in thanks to how combat works. Phantasy Star Online doesn't use the traditional cooldowns that most MMOs use. Rather, certain attacks eat up your PP, which naturally restores over time. Since your normal attacks don't consume that, it means you can always keep up the offensive, turning battles into a constant flurry of normal attacks that chain into your specials. Button mashing is an option, but incentivizing good timing is the perfect attack system. As you attack and dodge, a ring will appear around your character, and by initiating your next attack when it turns red, your next attack will have increased damage. These can be chained also, so it's good to find a good rhythm so that you can deal the most damage. Further enhancing the combat is the weapon types. Every class can equip 3 types of weapons, and these can be swapped on the fly during combat. Each weapon type has its own skills that it can use, allowing battles to get even crazier, and allowing you to adapt to whatever situation you find yourself in. Are you looking for some close range combat? Equip a sword or a lance and go to town. Need some range? Equip a gun or a bow and start blasting. This gives every character versatility, making soloing the game a viable option for most quests, and giving variety to your party customization. I've spent all this time going off about the combat, but if I were to go in depth with everything Phantasy Star Online 2 has to offer, I'd be here for a couple hours. There's client orders, which are mini quests that raise trust with the person who gives them. There's mags, which are pet-like robots that change their attributes and skills depending on what items you give them. There's an actual pet system that only applies to certain classes. You can change your class at any time, meaning that you can experiment with everything without having to make an alt. And even if you do need to make an alt, the character customization is insane. There's harvesting and fishing, which not only gives you experience, but also allows you to make stat-boosting recipes and skill rings that augment your stats further. There's a casino. Great, my gold saucer addiction from 14 can make a comeback. There's concerts that go on in the shopping plaza. There's personal rooms that you can customize to your liking. There's time-sensitive urgent quests, which can range from anything like code-filled expeditions to full-scale raids that sometimes have their own unique systems in place. There's just a whole lot going on in this game. The bow tying everything together is that you can do everything with your friends. I've been playing through the game largely with some of my friends, and running expeditions, tearing through bosses and raids, dealing with some chaotic codes, and generally just messing around has been an insane amount of fun. The community in general has just been really cool too. There's a whole bunch of people who are willing to help, there's a whole bunch of memesters, and generally everyone just seems to have a good time. And the best part about the whole thing? It's free. However, there's one big problem. One that's inevitably going to date this video, but one that needs to be addressed all the same. And that's that Phantasy Star Online 2 on PC is broken. The game itself works just fine, sure. I mean, it's a bit laggy in congested areas, but it's going about as fine as an MMO launch usually does. No, it's broken because of how it's being distributed. The Microsoft Store. I don't want to be all Microsoft bad, but seriously, what happened here? The files are placed on the computer all slapdash, you don't have the permission to delete them manually, which is a big issue because sometimes the app will just break, and you need to reinstall the entire game. Except the uninstall button also doesn't work. This happened to both me and a friend, and since this is a big game, that is a big chunk of time you lose reinstalling a game that worked just fine 12 hours ago. One of my friends even installed a launcher, and it was just the Japanese launcher. How does that even happen? The fact of the matter is that getting Phantasy Star Online 2 to work on the Microsoft Store is a complete crapshoot, and the failings of the store has almost completely overshadowed the launch of an otherwise great game. And currently it's still a crapshoot. There's just a whole array of problems that haven't been ironed out yet, and these are very common. So despite all the positive stuff that I said earlier, I don't recommend playing Phantasy Star Online 2 on PC. Yet. Once all of this gets sorted out, then yeah, absolutely, this is a really fun MMO. But in this current state, trying to deal with all these problems might hurt your interest in the game more than it helps it. So keep an eye out on Phantasy Star Online 2, because underneath the mess of problems regarding its launcher, the game is definitely worth your time. With all that said though, I'm gonna go try my luck and try playing the game again. So until next time, see ya.
This guy's gonna get native too.
Oh, this guy gets it.
He knows what's good.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson?
Native.